Welcome back to Artsy Shark, your go-to channel for art business tips. I'm Hallie, and today we're diving into a crucial topic for artists in the digital age: photographing your art. So let's get started, covering 7 mistakes to avoid when photographing your art and how to correct them. First, let's talk about alignment. One of the simplest mistakes artists make is failing to align the camera straight on with the artwork. This leads to distortion. Have you ever taken a photo of a building only to have it look like it's leaning backwards? That's a perspective problem known as keystoning. It happens when the building and the camera lens are at different angles. The same thing can occur when photographing artwork, if you're off to the side, above, or below the painting. To avoid this, always make sure the camera is square to the painting and at the same angle. Avoid using the wide-angle end of your zoom lens, as this can cause further distortion. Here you can see examples of what happens when the camera isn't properly centered. The middle image shows a camera off to the side, and the right image was taken with the zoom set to wide angle. The left image is correctly centered and free from distortion. The second mistake is not filling the frame with your artwork. Taking a tiny photograph of the art results in a low-resolution image that needs cropping before use. Cropping limits the size the image can be reproduced with. With a zoom lens on a DSLR, it's easy to fill the frame by adjusting the zoom. With point-and-shoot cameras, it's a bit trickier since the built-in motorized zooms don't always stop exactly where you want. To fill the frame, select a focal length in the middle of your zoom range and physically move your camera closer or further away until the frame is filled. Using a tripod can make this so much easier. Here's an example of how filling the frame can make a significant difference in image quality and usability. Third, let's talk about focus. Blurry, out-of-focus images make your photographs unusable. This usually happens when you fail to hold the camera steady. Using a tripod is a simple solution to avoid camera shake and the consequent blur it causes. On a DSLR camera, the general rule of thumb is that if the image is taken at a speed lower than 1/60, a tripod is required to take the shot. Your camera's autofocus may struggle with flat 2D art, especially if the artwork lacks contrast. If the autofocus isn't working well, try to find an area of contrast within the painting to focus on, then recenter the artwork and take the photo. Reviewing your camera's manual for focusing techniques can also be very helpful. Notice the difference between these two images. The one on the left is sharp and clear, while the one on the right is blurry and unusable. The fourth common mistake is producing photos with glare and reflections. Art that is framed behind glass or has a glossy varnish can be a particular challenge. To avoid this, photograph your artwork before adding a glossy varnish or placing it behind glass. If you're using lights, position them at a 45-degree angle to the camera to minimize reflections. Also, avoid using the on-camera flash, as it often causes reflections or hot spots. Here's an example of glare caused by the sky reflecting on a glossy surface. Compare it with the image without glare, taken with the proper lighting setup. Next, let's talk about exposure. Automatic exposure cameras usually handle most situations well, but dark paintings can appear too light and light paintings too dark. This happens because the camera's auto exposure system is designed for average values. Use the exposure compensation feature on your camera to make corrections. Look for the plus/minus button and adjust the exposure as needed. Check your camera's manual for specific instructions. Here you can see the difference between images taken with proper and improper exposure settings. Sixth, let's tackle lighting, which is one of the biggest factors in getting your photos right. Don't mix the type of lighting that you're using for your shot. The settings for auto white balance generally work well, but can struggle with mixed lighting. Ensure that you're using only one type of light source, either incandescent or natural light, and let the auto white balance do its job. For indoor photography, using daylight balanced, which would be 5000K, CFL light bulbs, can produce even lighting. And watch for uneven lighting, which can be a problem, especially for large artwork. This happens when light falls unevenly across the surface of your artwork. Choose either outdoor photography in the shade or indoors with even north light. If you use artificial lights, position them equally spaced on both sides of the camera at a 45-degree angle to your artwork. This diagram shows a good setup for photographing art, ensuring even light distribution without reflections. Here's a comparison of images taken with mixed lighting versus consistent daylight lighting. Notice the difference in color accuracy and evenness. Finally, let's talk about the background behind your art. Paintings and other 2D art can be photographed and cropped with no concern about backgrounds. But that is not the case with sculpture and other forms of three-dimensional art. Inappropriate backgrounds can ruin your best efforts to show your work, like this example. Seamless, neutral backgrounds are best because they do not interfere with the art and they help it to pop. This photo of Christina Bertzos' marble sculpture, Aphrodite Rising, stands out even though it's a neutral color itself, because the background recedes and the soft lighting gives a professional look to this photo. Remember, you've spent a lot of time creating your artwork, so invest a little more time to learn how to photograph it properly. Quality photographs make such a big difference in how professional you look, and they can significantly impact your sales. Thanks so much for watching. If you found these tips helpful, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Artsy Shark for more valuable content on the business of art. If you'd like to be featured on Artsy Shark, sign up for our email newsletter to find out about our newest calls for artists. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.